Okay, no, thanks. Well, we'll move to scene. We've got Robert here. Move to item 9, and that's the the Metro Spatial Plan Transport Business Case. And there is a report on the agenda related to this matter, which commences on page 15. So welcome, Robert.
Right.
And over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee members, ministers, for the opportunity to wrap up this piece of work, at least to the milestone we reached today, hopefully. So I've presented to you before on the emerging preferred option that the transport program business case was arriving at. Since then, the team have been confirming the details that sit within that program option, and what you see in this presentation is or in this paper is a representation of what I would call the economic case. So what are the transport interventions that are the most significant for us to achieve the outcomes in the Metro Spatial Plan? I won't go into detail in the presentation. If you look at page 23, there's a useful map that lays out the future rapid transit network that this business case envisions for the Metro Spatial Plan area, connecting Morrinsville, Huntly, Cambridge, Te Awamutu into Hamilton with a rapid transit network for the Hamilton urban area. 10-minute frequency bus services within the Hamilton urban centre, 20-minute frequency bus services to the outlying centres. Where we're at with the business case is we're asking today for your endorsement of that preferred option that's described in the paper. We still have work to do to button down the financial side of things. We're confident with the cost estimates for implementation of this business case. What we're trying to ensure we get right is the detail about what commitments or what investments are already covered in the 30-year infrastructure plans of the partner councils and in the RLTP, so we can get a sense of what the scale of change is here, because a lot of the work that's anticipated sits in those 30-year infrastructure strategies already, just a slight refocusing of some of the delivery mechanisms. And the other bit that we have to do some more work on are the management and commercial cases within a business case. The management case is about how do we implement this program, which, as you can imagine, is going to be a big challenge. Lots of moving parts, lots of different agencies needing to make decisions in lockstep. And how do we lever off all the good work that Futureproof has already done to create an integrated governance and management system for transport? So we're still doing some work with your leadership teams about how that might look, and we'll bring that back to you in September, along with the commercial case, which is how do we procure the next stages? So effectively, how do we move into delivery and get the work underway? So those pieces of work are still to come. I think that's really enough for me.
Okay. No, thanks, Robert. Just before I open it up, Bryn, any matters you'd like to add?
Morena, everyone. I think I'd just like to congratulate
and we need some greater volume. Try again, Bryn.
Oh, how's this?
That's better.
Oh, very good. Morena, everyone. I just wanted to congratulate everyone on a huge amount of work that has gone into this. And I know if Minister Wood was here, I'm picking up the emissions reduction plan and those VKT targets. So really, it's actually really good to see those baked into the work that's being done here. And I think across the work that's being done on things like bus rapid transit and micro mobility, this is actually a really good plan. And I think one of the things we're seeing come through very strongly is a very early focus on the implementation aspects of the management case, which is really good to see and a really good sign. So I think, I mean, we do have a little bit of further work to do with you as those regional VKT targets come together, but we will make sure that none of that is a surprise for anybody. So no, I think really just this is a really good bit of work and very pleasing to see.
Thank you. Alan, did you have a question, or you don't? Okay, I'll go to Dave.
I did. Mine wasn't a mistake. Look, a couple of things, and thanks to the team for this work, Robert. As you know, we've been involved for a long time, just maybe even longer than you in this bit. Look, seriously, the Hamilton network map you've got on page 23, your page 23, is good, but I think it's missing something when it comes to a group like this. It's missing the sub-region map. It shouldn't just have an arrow pointing to Huntly or to Cambridge. It should actually show those connections as well. And the reason I'm saying that is it's not just because I want to be nice to Mayor Allen and that, but it's because we're going to need public transport corridors and other transport corridors in those communities as well. Maybe not on all the bits of road or track between the towns, but in those towns we need to have something that locks their transport in. As an example, recent figures that we saw showed that there were 160,000 vehicle movements per day between the Cambridge vicinity and Hamilton. That's not all emanating from Cambridge. Obviously, that's return trips include that. So that means 80,000 vehicles are moving on that corridor during each working day. So that makes it absolutely vital that we have some sort of strategy for handling traffic emanating and coming through Cambridge, as well as when they arrive in Hamilton, and the same for all of the other surrounding communities. Hamilton might have a population only of 182,000 at the moment, but it probably services another 100 to 200,000. I don't know the exact figures, but somewhere in that range every day in terms of employment and education and things like that. And it's not all one-way traffic either. We totally recognise that people will go to work in, I think half of Waikato District Council staff actually live in Hamilton and work in Ngātawaia, don't they, Mayor Allen? So that's one point. If we could have that, the second map, if you like, not instead of, but as well as this, to show that how it works with the rest of the region. Another one is you mentioned you're working on financing, and I heard Bryn's words as well. It seems to me that the next step in financing is setting up a deal with the government, relevant government agencies and all the relevant agencies within this region, so that we have a long-term funding arrangement, a deal, if you like, a regional deal or something like that, that locks some things in. It's going to be very hard to put large amounts in the LTPs of councils if there's not corresponding surety from the other agents. And I mean, we could not mount this sort of program on the normal waka kotahi every 3 years, not knowing where you stand sort of situation. We absolutely, and this may not be the job of Future-Proof itself to do that, but I think this needs to identify that sort of future funding deal need. So interested in any comments on that. The last thing is the integrated governance for transport you mentioned, which our council certainly supports in principle. We want to make it clear, though, that we support a regional approach, not necessarily a regional council approach. And that's not designed to be mean to the regional council, but we think the partners in that have to be all of an equal footing down the track, so that we're not, for instance, the final decisions are not being made by the regional council, they're being made by a regional transport entity that we've all had sort of partnership input into.
Okay, so there's three questions there. I was going to ask Peter to comment on the funding one first, and then we'll come back to the other.
Got a good line to it, have you, Peter?
So I suppose my response is Future-Proof is not the only region grappling with exactly this problem. And there is a very live and similar debate going on in smart growth at the moment as to how do you get sufficient funding certainty between the partners in order to make progress. So I think we can take from that the relevant government agencies understand the nature of the challenge. The solution has not yet been landed, but I think we are now in the space where over the next few months, that is the challenge that we need to address, because trying to get 5 road controlling authorities and the regional council's public transport investment aligned for a period of 30 years is what is required to deliver this program business case. So I think we're quite right to step through this to say, yes, this is the vision of the transport system we want, and then to figure out how we're going to get there, because implementation will be the biggest challenge. And the last comment I'd make about implementation is delivering this business case is not just about transport improvements. It's equally about a raft of land use decisions and work to secure the level of intensification that is anticipated. So not only have we got to line up all the transport expenditure and governance framework, it's got to work hand in glove with land use decisions.
Robert.
Pick up on that. I'll start with an observation on the finance one, just to swing in behind Peter as the architect or the person who led the work that was equivalent to this work in Tauranga, the Urban Form and Transport Initiative. We're now at the same place that we can have the same conversation, because we've got an outline of what it is that we want this region to invest in, what's required. So that puts us in a place to have that conversation with the government. So it will be part of the next phase, I'm sure. In terms of the first question, the links to the neighbouring centres, there's a couple of points I want to make in that context. So yes, we will clarify the map if we can. Key thing is for that particular diagram is the 20-minute frequency buses, which is a considerable increase in level of service for Cambridge, Te Awamutu, Huntly, Lawrenceville. So that diagram shows that, but you're right, it doesn't show all of the other investments. And so that's part of the work we're doing at the moment, is going through, for instance, Cambridge is a good example of where Cambridge needs additional connectivity across the Waikato River to make its transport system function, to help people move around and to help people get to the rapid transit network. So that's the kind of stuff that the business case at a detailed level is drawing out. So we'll do some more work in terms of how we represent that in the next version you see. And then the final point around the management case, absolutely what you said, Councillor Dave, is what the management case needs to cover. How do we govern transport regionally, or at least sub-regionally, because you have to deliver an integrated package, which is, as Peter says, land use, the transport infrastructure, the road space reallocation decisions that road controlling authorities make, and the service level improvements and service design of the regional council. So no one agency can be in charge of that. We're taking a lead from the work, and declare a slight conflict of interest here, that Becca did for the regional council, looking at possible models, and that emphasised the need for it to be a multi-agency leadership structure, not a single agency being the lead agency, which everyone else is invited to attend. It's got to be joint decision. Which is quite challenging for us in local government. How do we make that work in the context of LTPs and individual accountability? So that's the kind of stuff the management case will need to work.
Thanks, Robert. I've got Angela, then Axel.
Thank you, Chair. Happy if Axel wants to go first, but that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Robert, for your work on this. And as you mentioned, your work on our PT business improvement review as well. Yeah, Dave, to your points about aligning those services with the infrastructure at the right time, that's, as we know, has been a source of frustration for quite some years. So yeah, I think we are well aligned moving forward, that we agree with the big goal overall. It's just how we get there. So what Robert and his team through the PT Business Improvement Review are recommending, I think it will help step us towards that and help bring everyone along on the journey, I'm hoping as well. So yeah, I really do believe that for a region that we do need a regional, a Waikato transport type thing. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see where this is heading, and really liking how future-proof MSP and even our regional public transport plan are all consistent and aligning really well moving forward. Yeah, agree with the funding. It's a huge, huge number for OPEX as well as CAPEX. So yeah, we certainly need a lot of alignment moving forward. Yeah, thank you for your work. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Axel.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to pick up on Dave's first point on that zoomed out map. And there's a curious tension, isn't it? Because of the need for intensity of housing, particularly within Hamilton, but also we'll see that right in that 3x3 zone where we'll see the RMA Amendment Act kicking in, along with being one of the 4 fastest growing regions in the country. We'll see enormous development in the sub-region altogether. So there's this tension between actually that next level of work needing to be done quite quickly. So that, and you didn't say designate routes, but I know that was implied in your commentary. We need to designate routes for public transport to make sure that the corridors are wide enough that there's places for, there may be EV charging of buses or some alternative fuel arrangements. All of that has to be thought about. There's probably park and rides on the outskirts of the rapid circle where people can join the public transport network and not have to take their vehicle all the way into town. All that sort of stuff we really need to hurry up and do so that we don't do anything with it for the next 30 years. That's the tension, isn't it? Because it's not actually required for quite a long time, some of it, but it needs to be designated and protected quite soon. So just speaking in support really of that point and the urgency around that.
Peter.
And if I might just springboard off that, you can't designate unless someone is prepared to take financial responsibility for the project. So we can't progress designation until we solve how are we going to arrange ourselves and how are we going to line up the financial backing for that. So it's critical.
Okay, any other questions or comments? There's nothing online. Okay. Robert.
If I could just make an acknowledgement, it wouldn't be fair of me to take all the credit that's been directed in my direction. So my role has been herding cats at the 11th hour. The technical work has been done by your staff for all of the partner organisations as part of the Transport Technical Working Group and by a consultant team led by Oricon. So I just want to make it clear there's a big team sitting here supporting this work.
No, fair comment, Robert. There's nothing further. I can take you to pages 15 and 16 of the agenda. There are a suite of recommendations from 1 to 12. Dave, are you happy to move those? Seconded by Angela. There's no further discussion. I will put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So thanks, Robert and the team. We'll move on to item 10, Implementation Advisor Report. Peter, anything you'd like to add to what you've circulated?
Not to add, but to emphasise. The resolutions that you passed with respect to the future-proof strategy went some way to expand the scope of work that's now required to deliver a future development strategy to comply with the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. So I suppose my key message to everyone is if you thought that we'd been busy to get to this point, that busyness just continues. We step now straight into the future development strategy and some quite significant issues in the midst of that. And we have to progress the resolution of the issues that we've just discussed in terms of the funding and governance framework for the Transport Program business case. So there's no shortage of things to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Peter in terms of what he's outlined or what is in his report? Dave.
When are you shifting to Hamilton, Peter?
No time soon. There's a really nice piece of road that I can drive along in my electric car and not contribute to the maintenance of at all.
No further comments or questions. On page 31, we have a recommendation to receive Peter's report. Have a mover and seconder for that. Mayor Allen, seconded by Axel. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now we'll move back to item 5, and that's the confirmation of minutes on page 6 and 11, I think. Pages 6 and 11. I'll take them together. Have a mover and seconder for those. Mayor Allen, seconded by Dave. Any matters members wish to raise in terms of those two sets of minutes? There are not. Further, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That brings us to the end of the... Alan.
Just one thing, it's a procedural thing. So this now in turn goes back to the partner councils, ratified. And from that point, when is all the decisions released? Because it'll be in peaks within the councils. So do the councils release it or come back to future proof to release?
Peter.
The strategy itself needs to go back to partners, but today is the decision day with respect to the submitters and the response to submitters, because Future Proof undertook the consultation, not each of the constituent partners. So submitters will be notified today/tomorrow of the decisions with respect to their submissions, and the revised final strategy will go on the website with a note that it's going back to partners. And so it will be public when it goes onto the website, and Bill and I will be addressing Dave's question as to what media coverage goes around that and going into the public domain.
Angela.
So just to clarify around the press release, as you might call it, we'd probably prefer a joint up press release representing the partners.
Yeah, we'd started from the proposition that there probably wouldn't be one, but we're happy to assist in the preparation of a joint comment from the partners if that would be helpful.
Dave.
I'm not asking to be involved in that. I'm very happy to let that be handled, except I have a suggestion that maybe a bit of a briefing could be offered as part of the press release, or at the end of it, direct from you guys to any interested journalists, or maybe the comms people in different councils could set something like that up, because they don't tend to cover Future Proof, and this is actually quite an important sort of step that we could offer them a bit more than the normal, 1.5 page press release.
Okay. Yes.
Just to add to your work.
No, thanks, Dave. Peter and I will look at that. Yeah, the resolution to release the document.
We've already done that, which is what I was just looking for. So resolution 7 is that we authorise the public release of the adopted strategy following the meeting. So that will be
okay, if there's nothing further. No. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you those who have come in online, and thanks for members and staff who are in the meeting room. As I really appreciate all the effort and work. As Peter has outlined, the foot's not coming off the pedal in terms of the work, the future work to be undertaken, not just in the transport space, but also in the future development strategy. work, which is a key follow-on, given the number of decisions that have been made in respect of the strategy review. So, thank you, everyone, and I declare the meeting closed.
We should get you guys to come and